Good morning and welcome to this media briefing focusing on CSIR at 75. Let me start off by welcoming our chairperson of the CSIR board, Professor Thokozani Majozi, whom you're going to be hearing more from later on the program. Members of the CSIR board, I welcome this media briefing. Our CEO, Dr. Thulani Dlamini, welcome. Members of the Executive Committee of the CSIR are here present and welcome. Colleagues from the CSIR who may be here, ladies and gentlemen of the media, good morning and thank you very much for joining Team CSIR on this momentous occasion. Nothing could have stopped us to pause and celebrate this important milestone we have reached as an organization, and we are pleased you have joined us. My name is Kungeka Njobe. I'm the Group Executive responsible for business excellence and integration, but I'm also the executive in the CSIR leading the communications function. You, the members of the media, are our special guests today, and we're thrilled that you could join us on this special day. We know that the news, there are plenty, and hopefully you'll find that today and what we're going to be sharing with you is newsworthy for you to share with the rest of the South African public. Exactly 75 years ago today, on the 5th of October 1945, by the way, this is the same year that the United Nations was also founded. So it must mean something about how important an institution like ours is. The Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, also known as the CSIR, was established. Although today we're physically distanced due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we thought it was prudent for us to share this important milestone on our calendar with you, public. This virtual media engagement session seeks to provide you with an update on some of the latest strategic developments in the organization. We want to share and engage you on the past, the present, and the future of the CSIR, including the upcoming 7th biennial CSIR conference, which will take place on the 11th to the 12th of November. Again, that conference is part of our celebration. I think to highlight, I can go on to many that are listed here. He received from the President of the Republic of South Africa the National Order of Mapungubwe. He's also received from the South African Institution of Chemical Engineer the Bill Neal May Gold Medal. He's a 3-time recipient of the NSTF Awards and twice the recipient of the NRF President's Award. He's authored and co-authored more than 200 scientific publications, including 4 books. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you would agree with me that we're truly led. We're truly led by the best. On that note, I invite Professor Thokozani Majozi to take the floor. Professor Majozi, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much, Kungeka, for that beautiful introduction. And I think you managed to paint very well the essence of today. But let me start by greeting the CEO, Dr. Thulani Dlamini, the members of the board. I can see we've got a few members of the board that joined us this morning. Good morning, colleagues. The members of the executive as well that are here, the organization. Some of the colleagues within the organization who have also joined. And particularly, I must say, I must greet and welcome the members of the media that are here this morning. We really thank you for making time.
Nothing, I can hear nothing.
It looks like there's a problem with the sound again. I hear someone saying they can't hear anything. Am I audible?
Fully audible.
Yes.
From where we are, you're audible, Chair. Andile, can you just switch off your microphone? Okay. All right, I'm going to switch off my microphone as well. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for that. Oh yeah, I must welcome the members of the media. We really appreciate your time to be here this morning, and I'm sure that you have a very fruitful engagement for the major part of this session. And really, without any further ado, let me allow the CEO to upload the presentation that we are going to share with you as we take you through the journey of this organization since it was founded in 1945. Dr. Dlamini, will you be able to assist me with that?
Yes, Chair David from our media department is going to run the presentation. I think it's loading as we speak.
Perfect. Maybe let's magnify that in the movie mode. Thank you very much. We can go to the second slide. So the whole idea of this on my side is really to take you through the journey of the organization from 1945 to where we are today. So the presentation itself is going to be structured as follows. I will give you the mandate, share with you the mandate of the organization. I will then take you through the CSIR journey in detail. And then I think it's important that we reflect on some of the achievements and the most impactful innovations of this organization. So I'm going to share that with you as well. The mandate of the organization is really, as put before you there, it enjoins us to conduct directed and multidisciplinary research as a way of fostering industrial and scientific development. And we do this, by the way, in the final analysis to improve the quality of lives of the people of South Africa. And of course, I must say that although our focus is in the improvement of lives of people in South Africa, there is no doubt that our innovations have also had impact beyond the borders of the country. And at this point, it's always good to pause because there are questions sometimes that are asked. And as an academic myself, this became very clear when I joined this organization in my capacity as the chairperson of the board. To create the distinction between an organization of this nature, the CSIR, and any other organization that does research, for example, institutions of higher learning that also are fully involved in research. What sets this organization apart? What sets this organization apart is exactly what you see in the mandate. It is conducting research that is directed in the sense that it must have a clearly defined outcome whose ultimate objective is to improve the quality of life of the people of the country. So it's not blue sky research. There's no room for blue sky research, which is why perhaps you won't find us doing work on cosmology, for example, although there's a place for that within our national system of innovation. So there's a place for an institution of this kind within the national system of innovation. You can proceed. If I take you through our evolution, it looks like we are now entering the fourth phase of our evolution. If you go back to when we were formed in 1945. In the first 3 decades or so of the formation, maybe 4 decades of the formation of this organization, most of our engagement were focused on addressing South Africa's technological problems and really served as central scientific powerhouse. A lot happened during this time, which I'm going to share with you briefly in the forthcoming slides. But it is around this time that I strongly believe that our mandate was still very fresh on our minds. We did a lot of groundbreaking science, but at the same time, we delivered on innovation that mattered where it mattered most in improving the lives of our people. That should be clear in the forthcoming slides. However, between 1988 and 2006, and again, that was inspired by the economic situation of the country, we found ourselves shifting now into a more market-oriented approach to support industries or industrial development. We did around that phase a lot of what you would call contract research around that time. And there was very little input on fundamental or basic research. So basically our pendulum swung to one end where most of what we did was very much in the practical domain with very little investment in fundamental science. And then observing that between 2006 and 2009 and 19, between 2006 and 2019, we then swung the pendulum to the other end, where we then decided to accentuate the R, which is research, in the CSIR. And around the time, we did more of groundbreaking science, but most of the work we did was really about fundamental science. And there was a feeling at the end of 2019 that perhaps we are now lagging behind when it comes to industrial development or technological innovation, because that too is part of the CSIR. It is part of the mandate of our organization. It is that informed the phase that we see ourselves getting into now, the phase that says, how do we make sure that we accentuate the I in CSIR, but at the same time, not losing the foothold on the R. So the research is still going to continue. Fundamental science is still going to be part of our day-to-day operations. But beyond that, we are going to start now really making more inroads into working with industry, forming new industries, supporting existing industries. And that is at the heart of the strategy that was recently adopted by the organization. We believe that this phase is going to be with us for the foreseeable future. You can move on, please. I'm going to share with you some of the achievements of the organization and some of the most impactful innovations. I think one of the things that we must really acknowledge is the fact that we've been very fortunate to attract some of the best talent from all walks of life and across all sectors within the organization. So we have a very strong set base, a group of highly motivated scientists, high caliber scientists, most of them really of global standing. But we also have highly motivated workforce in areas of administration, finance, comms, and all that. So this is an organization that is really well balanced in terms of the workforce that we have. And of course, at the very heart of the organization is transformation. So we want to offer even opportunities to all members of our staff and make sure that we keep members of our staff motivated and also finding at the CSIR a home away from home. In fact, if you look at our values, we spell EPIC, EPIC. The P in that EPIC is the people that we have within the organization. That is our best resource. We regard that truly as our biggest achievement. You can continue. If you look at some of the innovations, and I must share this with you, that it becomes difficult at times to come up with meaningful or impactful innovations if we don't have the infrastructure, the necessary infrastructure to really do so. Some of you would recall that around about 2016, we actually launched the Biomanufacturing Industry Development Center, the BIDC, which is housed at our main campus in Pretoria. And the main objective of this BIDC is really to translate biomanufacturing concepts and technologies into market-ready products and services. So we've got pilot-scale facilities that allow potential commercial businesses to come and test their technologies at the conceptual level. And also we assist them all the way to a point where their technologies are market-ready and ready to be commercialized. We've got that. It was launched in 2016 and it's a very viable facility within the organization. We also have a 3D printer for titanium parts. You would know very well that titanium is the metal of the future. So we have a 3D printer for titanium, arguably the largest of its kind globally. We have it housed also at our main campus in Pretoria. And around about 2018, we launched the biorefinery industry development facility, which is housed in one of our facilities down in Durban. We also have a facility down in Durban, which houses the BIDF. And the BIDF really was meant to assist in the development and testing of biorefinery technologies, particularly within the South African context. And of course, we do work with other companies abroad. The main partner in that program is SAPI, for example, whom you all know, South African Pulp and Paper Industries, which is arguably one of the largest pulp and paper manufacturers in the world. We can continue. And I think this presentation of mine wouldn't be complete without the mention of some of the very key innovations which a lot of us here would know about. For example, the heavy vehicle simulator. This was in 1965 when it was developed. And the idea behind this is really to assist in the construction of roads. It is very, very powerful in simulating the effect of about 20 years traffic within about a 3-month period. And it has earned more than 200 million rand on foreign revenue for this country, for South Africa. It was in 1965 when this was formed. It's still active today. In fact, if you are attentive enough, you would have seen when they construct some of our main roads, there's always a vehicle that looks more or less like what you see in the picture there in front of us. It's always standing there, and its duty really is to do the simulation that assists the civil engineers and of course some of the road engineers to design the roads accordingly. Around the 1980s, and we are known for this, by the way, we contributed heavily in the development of the lithium-ion batteries. It was in the 1980s thereabout, and we did so through the discovery of lithium metal oxide electrode materials, which have a spinel type structure. And that is a chemistry, of course, term or chemistry contribution. So we understood that at the very early stage, and that has played a very, very meaningful role in the development of these lithium-ion batteries. You would know that today, life wouldn't be possible without these batteries. They power our smartphones, our laptop computers, electric vehicles, smart grids. You'd find them anywhere at home. You have your cell phone that you have right now will be powered most likely by the lithium-ion battery. CSIR played a very meaningful role in the development of that technology. We also house the wind tunnels. They are there in our main campus as well. And these are really used in aerodynamic design tests and studies for local and international entities in the aeronautical sector. And we partner here with some of our key players in that domain. For example, Denel would be one of those partners. We can proceed. We've also played a very big role. As you know, the whole idea behind the CSIR was to support a capable state. So we also do a lot of work with the government departments to assist them in, of course, delivering on their mandate as part of our capable state support. For example, some of the examples that stand up there would be the Department of Home Affairs, with whom we developed the National Smart ID card. The ID card that I would assume most of you now have. Actually, all of you should be having the Smart ID card now instead of that paper ID that we had in the past. I got mine about 3 years ago, or maybe 2 years ago, thereabout. So CSIR was very, very influential in the development of the National Smart ID card. We've also provided advice on the rollout of the e-channel system with the banks. Those of you who have traveled perhaps recently would know that you can now go to the bank, and there is a small section in some of the branches, which is a Department of Home Affairs section where you can go and apply for your passport. And within a few days, your passport is ready through the bank without going to the Department of Home Affairs. That was some of the work that we did with the Department of Home Affairs. CSIR was fully involved in that. So next time you go and get your ID via the bank, you must know that CSIR played a very big role in achieving that. We've also worked with the South African banks, by the way, where we have introduced biometrics card verification method in the national payment system. We've done this with a few banks within the country, and it's still very active up to this day. We've also helped the South African Social Security Agency to develop systems for biometric identification of clients for purposes of managing beneficiary database, and also for designing systems and processes for payment of social grants to the right people. And you know very well that that's a very delicate area. It's very easy. If you don't have a good or sound security system, you might end up paying people that don't exist. And that is very, very important then. So we digitized that. We played a very big role in that regard. We've also provided advice on payment system and processes in line with the national payment system, and as well as the South African Reserve Bank requirements. So those are some of the things that we've done with the banks and some of the departments within the government. We can continue. We can proceed, please. Yes, and then if you look at some of the startups or spin-outs that we have had since the formation or the founding of this organization, we have a long history. Telumat, which still exists, by the way, today, was founded in 1956. And it's arguably one of the, if not the first, spin-outs that came from the CSIR. It is based on the telerometer, which was invented by Dr. Trevor Wildy in 1954. This company was formed in 1956, but the technology or the innovation was developed in 1954 within the CSIR. And as of 2013, that company had a turnover of 300 million rand and employed about 35 staff members. We also have another spin-out here, the thermal spray, which was formed in the late 90s. And the idea behind it really was to develop the wear and corrosion-resistant thermal spray coatings, as well as specialized welding services. And at the time of preparing this presentation, that company had about 35 staff members. There's also Uveco. Uveco is involved in the development of multispectral imaging cameras. It was formed in 2009. And as of about 2012, 2013, thereabouts, that company had a turnover of about 30 million and employed about 10 staff members. We can proceed. There's also Optimus Bio, which has really been very instrumental. In fact, one of the very few South African countries, or African countries, by the way, involved in the development of environmentally friendly water treatment products using indigenous bacteria. And also they are involved in the production of aquaculture products to improve fish production, as well as products for septic tanks, develop products for septic tanks, as well as biological pest controls. And then perhaps lastly, in this group of companies, and of course, the list that I have in front of you is not in any way comprehensive. So I'm just highlighting some of the key spin-outs. They are more than what you see in front of us. There's also Resin Biosciences, really, which specializes in microsphere technology, which is used in drug development, diagnostics, industrial processes. It's also, by the way, this company won the New Product Award. So there's supposed to be New Product Award in the presentation. There's NPA. It won the New Product Award at the Society for Lab Automation and Screening in the USA in 2015. That award, by the way, is very, very special. I'm not sure if there's any other South African company which has won that award. That was in the US. We can continue. Coming to the licensing and startup statistics, and this would be my last slide, after which I will hand over to Dr. Dlamini. If you look at the licensing, because that's also key in the work that we do, between 2004 and 2014, we issued about 105 licenses, and about 65% of those licenses were based on technical know-how, and 35% of those were patent licenses. About 68% of those licenses were on a non-exclusive basis, meaning that we are at liberty to also issue those licenses to other licensees. We can also use the IP or from those licenses for our own benefit. That's what non-exclusive means. And then there's also 32% that have been issued on an exclusive basis, meaning that once we issue it to a particular licensee, we can no longer issue it to other licensees. And then on startups, between about 1990 and 2000, we started about 32 companies. Like I did mention to you, those few companies I mentioned to you are not in any way the exhaustive list of the organization. So between 1990 and 2000, formed about 32 companies, and 7 of those were still in existence in 2014, which shows about a 22% survival. That's a very high survival, that if you realize that in South Africa, we know very well that with all new companies, if you are still there in 5 years, the chances are you'll be there for a long time, because more than 70% really of our companies do not survive beyond 5 years. So a 22% survival rate is quite a good rate. And then between 2000 and 2014, there were 22 companies formed and 10 still in existence. Of those, 10 still in existence in 2014, which shows about a 45% survival rate. And then between about 1990 and 2014, there were 54 companies formed, with 17 still in existence today, which shows about a 31% survival rate. And I think one of the issues that we have to highlight in the formation of these companies, it is not just about revenue generation for those entities. It is about employing people. It is about contributing positively in the improvement of lives of our citizens, and also beyond the borders, like I did mention earlier. So it's not about just the revenue that they generate, but it's also really about the changing lives of the people. And also really making a dent in this triple challenge of poverty, of unemployment, of inequality. So really that is a very, very, very powerful message that one would take from those companies, the formation of those companies. We'll continue along that trajectory, and this phase is simply saying to us, we must step up in that regard. We must do more in that regard. So I'll stop at this point and hand over to Dr. Dlamini to take us through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the board, and thank you for telling the story of this proudly South African company so compellingly. And I hope that the members of the media and the colleagues around the table have deepened appreciation of what this organization is capable of. This is only the beginning at 75. We still have a way to go. And our CEO will be telling that story. But before I invite our CEO, Dr. Thulani Dlamini, let me just do a quick introduction of who he is. He is the CEO of our organization since February 2017. He initially joined the CSIR actually in 2005 as the head of our National Laser Center. So he has been there in the research benches. And then he was later on appointed as the Group Executive for Research and Development, a position he held until 2011. And then he left to join Sasol, which is where actually he had initially been employed. At Sasol, he was the Executive Manager for Research and Development, and later became the Vice President for Strategic Research and Technology. He holds a PhD in chemistry, focusing on catalysis from the University of Witwatersrand. He's also got a master's in business leadership from the University of South Africa. He holds 5 patents, so he's done it, been there, done that. And so in his leadership, he knows what he's talking about. He's a member of the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. He's also the member of the National Advisory Council and the South African Academy of Science. There's more that we can say about our CEO and his accomplishments, but in the interest of time, let me invite Dr. Thulani Dlamini to address us. You've got the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Kungeka, for a very kind introduction. I also wish to welcome and greet the chairperson of the CSR board, members of the board present, CSR leadership, members of the media, as well as the fellow colleagues of the CSIR. It is indeed a historic moment for us as we celebrate our 75th year of the existence of this magnificent organization. I'm going to take off my video so that we don't have a bandwidth problem. David, if you can perhaps move to the next slide. So what I intend to do in the next couple of minutes is to share with you our vision, our mission, our values, and then talk briefly about the strategy of the CSIR and what we intend to achieve in the next decade, and perhaps even beyond that, and what underpins the current work that we are doing within the organization. It is indeed an extension of what we've done in the past. I think the chairperson spoke very eloquently about the evolution of the CSIR. And what we are doing today is building on the successes of the predecessors of this organization. And then lastly, I would like to talk about the impact of the work that we do, focusing particularly on the work that we've done recently in support of the national response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide. Next slide. So the vision of the CSR and the mission is extracted directly from our mandate, which the chairperson spoke to. Our vision is that we wish to be accelerators, that we are accelerators of socio-economic prosperity in South Africa through leading innovation. And how we are going to achieve this is by collaboratively innovating and localizing technologies whilst providing knowledge solutions for the inclusive and sustainable advancement of industry and society. We have chosen the words in our mission very carefully. We want to emphasize collaboration in terms of the work that we do. We want to emphasize the fact that our contribution is not only through the technologies we develop ourselves, but also through localizing technologies, taking what is available in the rest of the world and adapting it and adopting it for the specific situation in which we find ourselves in South Africa. Because we don't have to innovate all the time. If there's already an existing solution, we must bring that into South Africa. Of course, there's an added benefit of that in terms of improving our technology balance of payments. We also realize that our contribution is not only through technologies, but also through the provision of knowledge solutions, the provision of thought leadership, the provision of knowledge which informs policy development, for instance, in government. So we've chosen these words very carefully because we feel they capture the essence of what the CSR is about. Next slide. We've also, in the process of developing the new strategy of the organization, looked at what defines who we are. What are the values? What are the behaviors that guide us, that inform the way that we do work and the way that we conduct ourselves? As a CSIR, we pursue excellence in everything that we do, in research and development, but also in the areas that enable our business to function, in ICT, in HR, in finance, in supply chain management. We celebrate people because we realize that everything that we do in the CSR is as a result of the excellent people that we have within the organization in all the spheres of our work. We personify integrity in the manner in which we engage with each other, but also in the manner in which we engage with our partners outside of the CSIR. And that we welcome collaboration, that we design our programs with an expressed intention for internal collaboration within the organization, but also to bring in collaborative partners from outside of the CSIR, because only through that we'll be able to leverage the capabilities that we have within the organization. Next slide. If we look at the CSR at a glance in terms of numbers, these are figures that were drawn at the end of March 2020, which was the end of the last financial year. We have our campuses in Pretoria, Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town, Stellenbosch, as well as in Port Elizabeth. Our staff complement is 2,099 at the end of March 2020. 71% of those are Black South Africans, and 44% are female South Africans. We have a set base. These are the scientists, engineers, and technologists who undertake the various research and development that we do within the CSIR, which is about 1,427, And of those, 65% are Black South Africans and 36% are female South Africans. I think transformation is an imperative for us, and we need to ensure that we contribute towards the transformation of South Africa in all its spheres. Within our set base, 304, that is just about 20% of our set base has PhDs, and 423 have at least a master's degree qualification. We also track various outputs that come out of the work that we do. And here we talk about publication equivalence, as well as patents. Last year we produced 21 patents and 37 what we refer to as technology demonstrators. These are innovations which are at a high level of maturity in terms of development. So they are at a position where we can engage with potential commercial partners to look at the commercialization of the IP that we've developed within the CSIR. So 37, in effect, represents 37 enterprises that you can create from the IP that we have in the organization. Our turnover last year was 2.54 billion rands. The 1.68 is incorrect. And of that, 27.8% is what we receive as a grant from the Department of Science and Innovation. The rest we need to generate by undertaking contract research and development for the public and the private sector, both locally as well as internationally. We also invest significantly in human capital development. I think one of our values, as I said earlier, is that we celebrate people. And last year we invested about 52 million rands in various human capital development programs. That is covering a variety of areas. It is programs that are focusing on development of CSIR colleagues. It is investments in developing a pipeline of new researchers, but also a pipeline of colleagues who can join the various functions within the CSIR, be it ICT, be it finance, be it HR, and so on and so forth. So we feel very strongly that we have an important role as a CSIR to play in terms of human capital development within South Africa. Next slide. If we now come to our strategic areas of focus. Next slide. So our strategic intent is based on 4 pillars. One is that we wish to contribute towards the economic growth of South Africa by using our capabilities as CSIR. And in so doing, we also contribute towards the growth of the CSIR. So we wish to achieve growth, both in terms of the role of our innovations with regards to the growth of the South African economy, but also the growth of the CSIR. The second pillar is that of sustainability, where CSIR developed technologies lead to the advancement and sustainability of South African enterprises. But at the same time also, through the engagement that we have with South African enterprises, as well as with government departments, will also achieve a level of financial sustainability as a CSIR. We wish to create impact through the commercialization of our technologies and innovations for industrial development, as well as technology and knowledge transfer to enable the creation of a capable state. I think we're very mindful of the fact that we have a role to play in terms of industrial development on the one hand, but also to support the creation of a capable state. And then lastly, it's the issue of relevance. The role that the CSIR plays in terms of ensuring that innovation underpins industrial development within South Africa. Because we are of the view that South Africa can only attain sustainable industrial development if we invest in innovation. Next slide. So our strategy consists of these 3 dimensions. We have the mandate, which informs our vision and our mission, and we've translated our vision and our mission into a set of strategic objectives which inform our day-to-day activities and our indicators of performance to ensure that we can deliver on the vision, the mission, as well as the mandate. We have got 5 strategic objectives. The first one focusing on research, development, and localization and diffusion of transformative technologies. So the emphasis here is on technologies that will make a step change in terms of the competitiveness of South African enterprises, but also the competitiveness of South Africa in a broader sense. The second one focuses on the role that we can play in terms of contributing towards the reindustrialization of South Africa. As most of you will know, globally, there has been a decline in terms of the industrial contribution, the industrialization, starting from 2008 with the global economic crisis. South Africa, unfortunately, has not been spared from that situation. I think the contribution of industry, one focuses in this case on manufacturing towards the South African economy, has been declining in real as well as in relative terms. And the CSIR sees itself playing a role in terms of addressing the reindustrialization of South Africa. We also see ourselves playing a role in terms of supporting the development of a capable state through the work that we do to support government directly. And the chairperson spoke to some of the examples of what we've done in the past in this regard. We also wish to diversify our income, maintain a level of financial sustainability, and of course, continue on our excellent track record of good governance. We also wish to build and leverage our human capital, as well as invest in infrastructure. And I think these are the 2 points that the chairperson referred to as well, in terms of some of the achievements that we've had in the past, but we see ourselves continuing on this path of ensuring that we continue to invest in human capital development, but also having world-class infrastructure. The strategy itself is based on 9 pillars. These are pillars which are informed by an analysis of priority sectors and priority technologies. So we talk about priority sectors, we talk about the sectors of the economy which could make the most significant impact in terms of job creation, in terms of GDP growth, and in terms of them being an enabler of other sectors of the economy, what we refer to as the multiplier effect. And then we ask ourselves the question, what are the technologies that will bring about this transformation that I spoke about earlier, the step change in terms of the performance of these sectors? Wherein then we identify the research and development opportunities. Because at the end of the day, as a CSIR, we can only make a contribution towards economic growth or towards industrialization or towards the creation of a capable state through the research and development that we undertake within the organization. So the outcome of this very detailed and in-depth analysis led to the identification of these 9 sectors, which we refer to as clusters, that inform our areas of focus. So there is a set of clusters which are industry and society enabling, and these focuses on, these are smart places, next generation enterprises and institutions, smart mobility. I'll come a little bit later and explain what is it that we mean when we talk about smart places. And then we have another set of clusters which are focusing on industry advancement. And here we talk about advanced agriculture and food, the future of production, looking at chemicals, manufacturing, mining, next generation health, defense and security. And we wish to underpin all the innovations that we undertake in these clusters based on what is made possible by the 4th Industrial Revolution. So we ask ourselves the question, so how can we bring about this step change in the performance of these sectors using cutting edge, most relevant technologies, particularly those that are emanating from the 4th Industrial Revolution, as well as, of course, the enabling capabilities that we have within the CSR, which is people, as well as the infrastructure that we have invested in the past, and we continue to invest in going into the future. Next slide. If one looks at the value proposition of the CSR, what makes us unique? What is the unique value that we bring to South Africa, to government, to industry? I think one is that as an organization, we have multidisciplinary research and innovation capabilities. We have state-of-the-art research and development infrastructure. We have a highly skilled human capital base. I think the chairperson spoke to this. We also have a solid track record in terms of technology development, technology commercialization, enterprise creation, the development of new business models for the public and the private sector, as well as the ability to scale up products and processes. I think the examples that the chairperson spoke about of enterprise that we've created are a true testimony to this point. We also have an industry-facing value proposition, which we wish to position, and we've been positioning with industry for the past 2 years now, around the repositioning of the CSIR and the creation of a CSIR that has a much more stronger industry focus. And here we are focusing on supporting resource-based industries through multidisciplinary science and technologies, supporting the manufacturing industries through enhancing existing or the creation of new products, processes, and services, the optimization of industrial processes, the commercialization of technologies through licensing and the creation of startups, as well as the creation of enterprises I spoke to earlier. Next slide. If one then takes a little bit of a deep dive in terms of what sits behind these 9 pillars of our strategies, which we refer to as clusters. If one looks at advanced agriculture and food, the intent here is that we wish to strengthen the primary production, the agro-processing, and the advancement of rural economies through the use of innovation to create a competitive agricultural sector, but also to ensure that in so doing, we can create a position of food security for South Africa. Hence, the emphasis on rural agriculture and how we can enable that to thrive and to succeed in the era of technology and innovation. If we look at our focus on chemicals, here our strategy is based on 3 pillars. A focus on biochemical conversion, how one can use biological processes to develop chemical processes that are more environmentally benign and have high levels of efficiency and productivity. We should focus on the pharmaceutical sector to look at the improvement of production processes in the pharmaceutical sector. And then lastly, we should have a focus on advanced materials. I think all of you will agree that the world rides on materials. Everything that we do in the world somehow involves materials. South Africa can play a role in terms of the development of advanced materials, based on the one hand, looking at the beneficiation of natural resources that we have, but also based on innovations that could lead to new materials. Then we will focus on next generation health, where the emphasis is on the development of technologies to improve the health outcomes and the innovations that will inform patient-centric healthcare delivery systems. If you look at manufacturing, we wish to strengthen the manufacturing value chains to enhance industry competitiveness. In the area of mining, we wish to support the growth and revitalization of the mining sector through innovation. The CSIR used to have a strong presence in mining in the past, and we wish to regenerate, rejuvenate, and recreate that position for the CSIR as a key player in terms of the sustainability of the South African mining sector. In terms of defense and security, our focus is on building a resilient defense and security capability to strengthen national security through technology development. And here the focus is not only on in terms of the offensive side or the military applications of defense-related technologies. We wish to protect and secure infrastructure. We wish to protect and secure environmental assets. We wish to protect and secure the citizens of South Africa. If one looks at what we refer to as smart places, this is an area which focuses on the whole field of environmental sustainability, infrastructure, as well as issues of renewable energy. In smart mobility, our emphasis is on ensuring that South Africa has an efficient, effective, and integrated logistics sector, where we innovate in terms of the technologies that ride on the infrastructure, as well as developing better performing road and logistics infrastructure. In terms of next generation enterprises and institutions, our focus is on the digital transformation that we are seeing in the public as well as the private sector, and the CSIR playing a role in terms of enabling that transformation. Next slide. If we now move on to the impact that we've created as a CSIR, and here I wish to use examples of some of the work that we've done recently, particularly in support of the national response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The CSIR is involved in over 20 various projects looking at a variety of different aspects of this pandemic. I think we're able to do this also because of the multidisciplinary, the multisectorial approach that we have as a CSIR towards innovation. And here I give examples of some of the work we've done. I think we've been driving the development of a local ventilator with a number of partners in the public as well as the private sector. We've also been producing medical quality protective facial shields. We've been involved in various forms of modeling of the spread of the virus, mapping of vulnerable communities. We've developed, as part of our modeling capabilities, a decision support center within the CSIR, which works with various sectors of government in terms of providing information that informs decision making, including the National Coronavirus Command Center. We've done geospatial modeling to identify the level of internet connectivity to students' locations, to support the access of learning materials to students during the lockdown period. We've developed a platform to track the movement of people, and in so doing, of course, also understand the level of compliance with the various lockdown regulations. We've worked with a number of provinces. We worked with the Gauteng Department, the Gauteng province, in terms of understanding the level of compliance within taxi ranks. We've worked with the Northwest province in terms of studying the impact of the coronavirus on the Northwest economy. We've also been involved in the issue of broadband access, looking at the utilization of what is called television white spaces to support broadband access. We've also converted some of our facilities and made them available for testing of COVID-19 samples. And we're doing work now in support of the NHLS, but also working with a number of public sector and private sector entities in terms of providing testing capabilities for them. We've also developed a technology, and are continuing, of course, in this regard, for the rapid detection of the coronavirus. We've got a test kit that we're working on in this area. And a variety of other areas, including the use of medicinal plants, the sanitization of banknotes, working with the banking sector in this regard. We've also been involved in the development of antiviral face masks, as well as antiviral sanitizers and lotions. We've also been looking at the environmental aspects of COVID-19. And here, some of the work we've done it involves looking at drinking water, wastewater, as well as the impact of the lockdown on air pollution. I think this gives you a sense of the breadth of the different activities and the project that we've driven with regards to, on the one hand, creating an understanding of the coronavirus, but also supporting the national response, both with regards to data, but also with regards to information, with regards to technologies. I think this is my last slide. If you can go to, yes, this is the last slide. So thank you very much for your time again. And I'll hand back to Kungekanjobe to take us through to the next part of our program.
Thank you very much, CEO, for that presentation. I hope the colleagues have a very good sense of where we're going, what we're already doing, and that indeed, as our country begins to tackle the next battle, which is our economy, that CSIR, I'm sure you'll agree, will come in handy, given the skills and the capabilities we have. We are at 12 o'clock. However, we cannot leave here without giving our colleagues in media an opportunity to ask the questions, particularly of our chair and our CEO, and I guess generally. So I'm now opening up the floor to take questions from the members of the media. May I ask that you put up your hand as provided for on the Teams? I'm hoping from my colleagues in ICT this is possible for the members of the media. And also, as you take the floor, kindly introduce yourself as well as the media house you come from. I see the hand from Hans van der Groenendaal. I think I've pronounced it that way. Can I take about maybe 2 or 3 questions before we then give the floor to our colleagues at the CSIR to answer? Is there any other member of the media? There's a JC. I'm not sure what the full name for JC is. You also will come after Hans. And then I've got Lloyd Phillips, who will also come after JC. There's another hand. I'm not sure. I'm not able to see all the hands.
I think it's Debbie.
It's
Debbie Kungela.
I'm sorry?
Debbie.
Okay.
Yes.
The other hand is, okay, I've got all the hands now. I've got Debbie, okay. So I had Hans van der Groenendaal, and I had Lloyd, and then I have Debbie, and I've got Justine, and I've got Sarah Wild as well. Maybe let's leave it at that and take those questions in that order. Your name, the media house you come from, and your question, and to whom your question is directed to. Okay, Hans, can you go ahead?
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm with Engineer IT. And the question that I'd like to ask is from Dr. Dlamini, and that is, the CSIR has many patents that are available for licensing, and I think Dr. Dlamini will know that I've asked him that question many times before. Are there any plans in place now to try and excel the uptake of many of the patents that the CSIR holds and that are available? Because if we don't, then some of those patents will either expire or be superseded with newer developments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That will come back to you. Now I've lost a bit of my sequence, but I'll deal with everybody who's got their hand up now. JC, I think you've got the floor. Is that Justine? I think, yeah. Justine, you've got the floor.
Hi, this is Justin from Defence Web, and my question is, what defence and security products does the CSIR want to highlight, and are they working on anything new?
Okay, thank you very much, Justin. I get Lloyd. Lloyd, you've got the floor.
Hi, good afternoon. Lloyd Phillips from Farmers Weekly Magazine. To Professor Majozi, what are some of the examples of the biomanufacturing and biorefining technologies using raw feedstock or materials from South African agriculture? And just following on to that, what would be the potential benefits of these technologies? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. And then I take Sarah, and then we'll get the questions to be directed to the CEO and the chair. But I also want to highlight that there are two colleagues who may be able to answer the two questions on agriculture as well as on defense from our expert, Dr. Maseremule and Dr. Rachel Chikwamba. So, but CEO, you might direct us on how we deal with that. I think, sorry, maybe I skipped you. My apologies. Did Debbie?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please,
Oh, wonderful.
sorry.
Hi, it's Debbie. Thank you.
I skipped you and Sarah, sorry. Go ahead, Debbie.
Thank you. Hi, it's Debbie Schultz. I'm from Mail and Guardian. The question I just wanted to know is, are there any other organizations such as the CSIR in other countries? And if so, across the world globally, and if so, are you in correspondence or collaboration with them?
Thank you, Debbie. We'll get that answered. Sarah, you've got the floor, and then we'll get the questions answered.
Thanks, Kunzi. So Sarah Wild, and I'm a scientist. My question is around the CSIR's climate change capability, where historically it's had a very large presence in data sets going back decades. And now that falls under your smart places and industry competitiveness. How do you plan to use climate change data for industry competitiveness? And will the CSIR make that data available to other researchers in the country?
Okay, thank you. Echo, if you could just keep our mics muted. CEO, I think the first question was for yourself from Hans. And then there was a question from the Farmers Weekly. The chair, Professor Majosi, I'm not sure if you want that question, you want to handle that. And then there's a question from Justin on defense. And then question from Debbie on the other RTOs. And then a question from Sarah on some of the capabilities that previously existed and where they are in the new structure. Maybe let me give you the floor, CEO, and you can delegate, of course.
Okay, thank you, Kungega, and thank you very much for the questions that have been asked by the colleagues from the media. So what I'll do is I'll deal with the questions from Hans, Debbie, and Sarah, and then ask Dr. Maseremule to respond to the question from Justin. And if Dr. Rachel Chikwamba can, in addition to the response by the chair, also act on the question around the BIDF and some of the work that we are doing there. So Hans, the question around patents. One of the things that you will notice we've done as part of the implementation of the new strategy is that we had to review our operating model. And in the operating model, we've created 3 divisions of the CSIR, and each division consists of 3 clusters. Now, at the executive level of each division, we have created an executive responsible for business development and commercialization to address primarily the issue that you raise now, that perhaps in the past we've not been as successful as we would like to be, and that's not without trying to commercialize the intellectual property that we generate, that we develop within the CSIR. But maybe let me contextualize this, because sometimes when we talk about the commercialization or the exploitation of IP, we only look at one thing. We look at the creation of startup companies or the licensing of IP to a private entity. And we overlook the one other critical element around how we exploit IP through the use of this IP to generate contract research and development for the CSIR income, contract research and development income for the CSIR. I spoke earlier that just under 30% of 27.5% of our income comes as a grant from the department. The rest of the income we raise through contract research and development. Fine, a significant portion of that comes from the South African public sector. But a sizable amount comes from the private sector in South Africa, as well as from the international clients that we engage with. Now, all of that is possible through the IP that we've generated within the CSIR. But having said that, I think we also appreciate and accept the fact that we can do more in terms of the creation of enterprises from the IP that we generate in the CSR through spin-offs, but also through licensing. Hence, we've created this portfolio now in our operating model to focus on the commercialization of the IP that is generated by the CSIR. So we feel that, and we are beginning to see some positive results with regards to this issue of the impact of having this portfolio which focuses on commercialization embedded within the divisions of the CSR. So you've got a much more closer interaction between the colleagues responsible for commercialization with the colleagues who are driving the innovations and the technology development within the organization. So that is what we have done to try and address this particular and to improve our performance in this regard. The question by Debbie.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Hans. The question by Debbie. Yes, there are a number of what I'll call sister or similar entities like the CSR across the world. I think the CSIR, as Kungeka indicated, was established around 1945. And at the time, there were also other CSIRs that were also created. And the CSIR, the C in those CSIR doesn't stand for the Council, it stands for the Commonwealth Science and Industrial Research Organizations. So we got one in Australia and one in India. So those are also called CSIRs. But you also have similar entities like the National Research Council in Canada, the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, TNO in the Netherlands, and many, many others. I think I cannot count all of them. And where it makes sense, the CSR does collaborate with most of these science councils in a number of areas. And I will not be able to give you the details of the various projects that we undertake with them. But they certainly form a part of our network in terms of partners that we engage with regards to the collaboration that we do with the external partners. And then if I move on to the question from Sarah Wild around climate change, the CSR still has a strong capability in terms of climate change. Within our smart places, we've got a dedicated focus in this area, and we run a number of programs. We run the Access program, for instance. We run the SOCO program, which is looking at the Southern Oceans. But also we do research which supports, and we have engagements with a number of private sector companies. Particularly, recently we've been working with the banking sector, because as you can imagine, issues of climate change has a significant impact with regards to risk. And we're engaging the sector in this regard. So we'll continue to do this work. There should be no illusion that the CSIR is in any way scaling down on the work that we've done in terms of climate change, because it is an integral issue in terms of any industrial development effort. One cannot overlook the impact of climate change. But our contribution is not only in terms of looking at its impact with regards to industrial development. It also impacts social issues. I mean, we've recently published a book around spatial planning for housing. and how climate change can impact that, and what government needs to do to ensure that we can factor in the impact of climate change when we talk about spatial planning. So our role and our contribution in terms of climate change is very far and broad. I mean, if you look at our work in terms of renewable energy, for instance, it's about trying to mitigate, to reduce the impact of energy generation and use on the climate. That's a climate change issue. So we've got a very broad view around issues of climate change. And we continue to do work which supports a variety of sectors and also provides knowledge with regards to the impact of climate change. I think the data that we have is not just CSR data, it's data that is available to the South African public. I think the work that we do is not just for ourselves, it's to save the greater good, it's to contribute to improving the quality of life for the people of South Africa that the chairperson spoke to in terms of our mandate. And of course, we collaborate with partners, we make data available, but of course we do this in a responsible manner. So yes, the data is there that we've developed, whatever it is, and it is available for us to engage with our collaborating partners in terms of how this data can be utilized for the greater good of South Africa. Perhaps I can stop here and ask Dr. Maseremule to speak to the question from Justin on defense and security, and then the chairperson can take over from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Also, thank you, CEO. Dr. Maseremule, you've got the floor. I hope you've got the question.
Thank you, ma'am. No, thanks for the question, Justine. The portfolio in this regard is quite sizable. I'm going to point out to just a couple of technologies. There is synthetic aperture radar, which is going to be used for both military applications and civilian applications, and we're hoping to commercialize this technology in the short term. So in the next 12 months or so, we hope to be able to commercialize that. There is also in terms of protection of wildlife, some of these technologies are not new, but there are progress. There is progress in terms of the miniaturization of radar, for instance, with Reutech radar. I think where we're hoping to get into in terms of the use cases here is in the protection of infrastructure, the likes of Transnet and other and still in environmental assets like Rhino. When you have a smaller radar that is cheaper, for those who do not know, the CSIR developed a technology that has 3 sensors. It uses radar, laser, and a camera system. Now, with the miniaturization of the radar, we will be able to get into more use cases. Things like protection of farming communities, where there are a lot of farm matters. One will be able to produce a system that can monitor a 10-kilometer radius and then be able to have a 24-hour eye on these communities that are crucial for the economic activity and indeed for the safety of the people of the Republic. So I think Justin, this requires a dedicated session on its own in terms of the technologies in that particular space. But there are a good number of very exciting technologies that we can talk about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mutodi. Justin, you still have your hand up. If you could lower it, you're welcome to do a follow-up, but let's just complete this round of questions. Can we ask Dr. Dr. Chikwamba to just address the issue asked by Lloyd on the BIDC work, and after that we'll ask the chair of the board to add any further comments.
Maybe,
thank you.
Sorry, if I may step in there, because mine is going to be broad. Perhaps if I may ask from the program director, Kungega, to give me a chance just to give the broad aspect of biomanufacturing, also as they pertain to agriculture. And then I can allow then Dr. Chikwamba to go to the details.
That's very well said. Thank you very much. You've got the floor.
Thank you very much, Kungera, for that. And yeah, thanks, Lloyd, for the question. Look, the applications of biomanufacturing are very, very, very wide. In fact, the scope for that is really almost endless. There are medicinal applications for biomanufacturing. You also see a lot of biomanufacturing in food and beverage industries, particularly in the dairy sector, for example. You know that the very key enzymes that are used in the dairy sector would be your lactase, for example, that is used in the dairy sector, and catalase. And lactase is really used to remove lactose, because lactose it tends to give a very, very weak, very bad smell and taste for the dairy product. So there are a lot of uses for enzymes in that area in the food and beverage industries. Also, you find enzymes, by the way, even in the manufacture of something that is perhaps remote from immediate understanding. You know, I'm involved in a project now where we are working with Distel. Distel manufactures Savannah, which comes from apples. And before we produce those apples, we'd have to have some yeast. And there's an enzyme there that is also used to make sure that the yeast, the catalytic effect of the yeast is actually improved. Enzymes, as you know, are biological catalysts that are very specific depending on the environment that they are employed for. For example, the one for lactase would be the enzyme that would reduce lactose. It's specific for the lactose degeneration. And then in medicine, we also have a lot of applications. For example, in vaccines, there are many, many applications of biomanufacturing in the manufacture of vaccines. And you would have heard during this COVID-19, the issue of antibodies. Most of those antibodies derive from enzymes, for example. And then there are also applications industry, in most of the industries, like in bioremediation, for example. I think your question on this aquaculture. There are many biological products that are coming in now, really because of the drive to mitigate negative environmental impact. These are used mainly for bioremediation, and the idea behind using bioremediation instead of our typical chemicals is that they tend to be very environmentally friendly. And it's just that the problem with bioremediation is that the conditions within which these must apply are very narrow in most instances. The control systems have to be very, very stringent, because you are depending on the biological material or bacteria, which is more like the basic form of life. So these are alive and need to be kept alive using proper conditions, unlike your chemical products. But in terms of environmental impact, you actually have a better chance with bioremediation. And also the other applications that are very, very common in industry, in agriculture as well. I think you did mention in agriculture, we are looking at, this is what the CEO touched on, the medicinal plant products within the CSIR. There are many, many uses of medicinal plants, by the way. I think some that come to mind to most of us would be chamomile. Is one of those medicinal plants. It has a very sedative effect. You know that we tend to drink that if you want to sleep peacefully. Then there's ginger, which is also one of the medicinal plants. There's a number of these. I mean, the garlic is one of those. The list is endless. So there are many, many applications of this. And in as far as CSIR is concerned, the project at hand is determined by the partner that approaches the organization with a clearly defined project, mostly at a conceptual phase, and then that is developed accordingly, then as I did mention earlier, developed to a point where it is ready for market proliferation. So you cannot say that you are working on these and these projects specifically. Those projects are determined by the potential partner that is prepared to work with the CSIR. But the space of biomanufacturing is really limitless. This is just broadly speaking around biomanufacturing, and then I'll allow Dr. Chikwamba maybe to talk to the specifics maybe within the organization that we are working on. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair. You've done such a good job of covering the area, so I'll be very brief. You did mention that biomanufacturing covers the fermentation of bugs that we use for environmental remediation, the development of industrial enzymes that catalyze food processing, but also benign other chemical industrial processes. You spoke about biologics that we produce in yeasts, in animal cells, in plants, such as vaccines, such as growth factors, such as antibodies for therapy, passive immunization, and so on. So I think you did a very good job on that. The only other thing that I want to add is the work that we do on converting renewable materials into high-value products. So, for example, we do have our biorefinery industry development center in Durban that looks to revitalize the forestry sector. We are only utilizing at this stage about 47% of the trees, whereas in advanced countries, they use up to 97% of the tree material. This is about taking all those byproducts, sawdust, leaves, other renewable feedstocks, and converting them to high-value materials like cellulose and nanocrystalline cellulose and other products. But finally, we do open up those facilities as well to large-scale and small-scale players to come and use our infrastructure, get trained in skills development, develop their ideas further so they can go and set up their own enterprises. That was my only addition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chikwamba. I don't see any other hands, and we are past the time that was scheduled. This was scheduled up until 12. With your permission, I see Justine's hand is coming up again. Justine, you've got the floor.
Hi. I wanted to ask if the Nundu pod will be used by the Red Sky Air Training Consortium, and I want to confirm that the Ndiza UAV is being used by the SANDF for border protection and peacekeeping.
Okay. Can we direct that? I think we should direct that back to Dr. Maseremule. Dr. Mudodi?
Yeah, so no, I won't be able to answer that, Justine. The second question is very naughty. We've gotten in trouble with the Defence Force on platforms that they use because they, you know, some of them are rather classified projects. I'm not sure about the first one, but we can follow up, Justine. Let's follow up. I can follow up with you offline in terms of an Indiport.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right.
Great. Thanks, Justin. Professor Majosi, do you still want to come back? Oh.
No, so sorry, Kungega. I don't know. I'm sorry about that. I'll mute now.
No, that's fine. I'm assuming that there are no further questions, but I also know that colleagues who want to further engage the CSIR can use and access us through our communications office. David Mandaha is our media specialist, so please, please feel free to do so. We want to thank you very much for your participation today. We also want to remind you that this is not a once-off event around CSIR at 75. Actually, there will be a variety of activities over the next year. One of them, as I highlighted before, is our CSIR conference on the 11th to the 12th of November. We hope that those of you who are particularly interested in the various clusters, the work of the clusters, the detail of what's taking place there. Sarah, if you want to know about climate change, Justine around defense, it will take them to attend, to register for the conference and participate in some of those sessions, because you learn a lot as well about the work we're doing. There'll be other various activities within the CSIR. We'll also be launching a new brand Later on in this month, again, we will be inviting media to participate at that event. I really want to thank the chair of our board, our CEO, and the members of our board who made themselves available for this session, our EXCO members, and of course the members of the media who really took the time to be here today. Hope that we'll continue to have a productive and constructive working relationships with you. And with that said, I would like to propose that we end this session today. And thank you once again. As people, we invited you. We're not going to exit first. We're going to exit after everybody has exited. So thank you once again.